Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today I'm in the kitchen and I'm getting ready to can up some dried beans. Now, while those dried beans are processing in the canners, I'm going to be working on making sure my pantry is ready for the winter and refilling a few of my dry mixes. So if you want to come along and see what we're doing, stick around. Thanks for sticking around, everyone. Well, it is an absolutely beautiful day here today. It is Saturday and it is in the mid 70s. Andy's out mowing. We finally had a rain. We haven't mowed for weeks and weeks. It was so dry, but we finally had a rain and the grass is growing again and it's turning green. And so he's out there mowing and it smells like summer, but it feels like fall. Very beautiful out today. Now, as you know, our garden is still producing a lot of stuff. We had it really, really dry for probably about a month. We had hot days and we had cool days, unusually hot for this time of year. But we have not had to water our garden, the main garden, you know, our regular garden, all year, which was very exciting. Even with this last part, this dry part, the only two things, well, I guess there's four things out there. The only things we still have going right now are the tomatoes, the peppers, the sweet potatoes, and some okra. And really all of those things are fine with the heat and the dry weather. The tomatoes and the peppers are just still going gangbusters. They're also both blooming still. We don't know what the sweet potatoes are going to look like. We haven't even scratched the ground to look. The vines look beautiful. We'll see if we get sweet potatoes this year. And the okra, I have been harvesting it every couple of days and putting it in Ziploc bags, just slicing it and putting it in Ziploc bags and freezing it. And it's done great too. So we have had an absolutely wonderful season in the garden. Now we also are now getting our second batch of apples coming off the tree. They are just starting to let loose of a few, so I'll be picking those and making lots of stuff with those. I will be doing some apple pie filling and I'll be continuing to dry some, probably canning some, and some more applesauce. I've been making lots of applesauce. We really love the raspberry applesauce. I also made some mixed berry applesauce, and I've canned it and I've frozen it, so we have a lot of that and we love that. That's something we just enjoy eating with our meals. So we've had a great year. I've got lots of things in the pantry, and now that things are starting to kind of come to an end, I still have tomatoes in the freezer that I need to get out of there so we have the freezer space, but I still have several projects, big projects left of preservation, but we're getting to the end. I see a light at the end of the tunnel. And even though I enjoy the preservation and I enjoy the garden and everything, you know, after a while, you're ready to move on, and I definitely am ready for a little bit of a break. So today we are going to get some beans on the shelf because I do not have any black beans or kidney beans or pinto beans on my pantry shelf right now. I do have some navy beans, but not very many. And this is chili weather, soup weather, and we use lots of beans in our soups and our chilies. And also we use the black beans for tacos and burritos and all of that. So we go through a ton of black beans. So I have got several types of beans here that I'm going to be canning, and I've got 2 pressure canners that I'm going to be using today, so that will help because beans do have a long processing time. Now there's different methods that people use. One of them is just putting dry beans in a jar and filling it with water. And I've done that. It is not a proved way. They haven't tested it. It has worked for me. The only problem I've had is I never know how full my jar is going to be with beans. Sometimes it's fuller, sometimes it's half full. So and I know the different kinds of beans can expand at different rates. So I've never really had beautiful looking beans that way. They've tasted great, they've preserved well, we've had them on the shelf for years. But today I'm going to try the official way of canning beans. So I'm going to see if we like this actually better. I did do some barbecue beans this year and had to use this method, and it did turn out really well for those barbecue beans. So I'm hoping that this too will work really well. So what I've done, there's two ways you can do this. If you know, like the night before, that you're going to be canning and preserving beans, you can take your beans, rinse them good, put them in a bowl, cover them with several inches of water because they expand a lot during the evening, and let them soak for 12 to 18 hours. And since I knew I was going to be doing this, that's what I did. I rinsed my beans, and I have four kinds. I have pinto, black, kidney, and navy beans. And so I rinsed all of them. I put them in their own bowl. I covered them, because these bowls were more tall instead of wide, I covered them with probably 3 to 4 inches of water. And this morning when I came down, some of them, the beans were actually above the water because they had soaked most of it up. So I had to put some more in to let them soak longer. So they've been soaking probably 13 or 14 hours by now. So if I didn't know that I was going to can beans, and I woke up in the morning and said, oh, I need to can some beans, I would be taking them, rinsing them off, getting them clean, and then I would put boiling water over them and boil them for 2 minutes. Then I would take them off the heat and I would let them soak for 1 hour and then drain. That would get me to the point that I'm at right now. So that's a quick start method. This, if you already know you're doing it, this is easy. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to drain the water off of these beans, and we need to cover them with fresh water, and we need to boil them for 30 minutes. And that is, once they come to a boil, start timing 30 minutes. Then after that 30 minutes, they are going to be ready to can. And I guess the reason that they do that is that way they're going to be hydrated to the point that it's going to be pretty clear that they're not going to be getting too much bigger. They aren't going to be fully cooked. When you bite into them, they'll still be a little bit hard in the center, but that's okay. They're going to fill the cans, I believe, nicer. I think that's what I'm wanting to see. And so then we're going to put them into our jars, and we are going to process. Beans do take a lot of time to process. Quarts are going to take 90 minutes, which is an hour and a half. And so while these are processing, I have some other things that I'm going to be doing with you and just kind of getting things in order in the pantry. Lots of little things that you just don't think about, and this is the time of year that it's good to get it organized. We live rurally, so if we get big snows and things, we could easily get snowed in for a couple days. So I always like to have plenty of things on hand. So it's nice to always be prepared. And it's also nice now that prices are going up so much to have food on hand so that you can buy things in bulk and save money that way too. So having said that, let's get going with the beans. So I've got I've got 4 different types of beans, so I'm gonna need 4 different types of pans. So all I'm gonna do is drain these, put them each in their own pan. I'm going to put them on the stove, and we are going to let them boil for 30 minutes. And when that's done, I'm gonna bring you back. Now, while this is boiling, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wash my jars and get all my jars and things ready. That'll give me time to get all of that done. So I'm trying to use my time really wisely today. That way we can get the most of what we need to get done today. So I will bring you back when these beans are ready to be put in the jars. All right, so while you were gone, I got my jars all cleaned up. The beans have boiled gently for 30 minutes and we are ready to put them in the jars. I have my pressure canners going. They should be hot by the time I get my jars in there. So we are good. Now, let me grab. Okay, so you don't drain the liquid off at this point. We're going to be using that liquid in our beans. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with my quarts because I'm going to fill up one canner with quarts, and that will take 7 quarts. And then my next canner I'll use pints and just see what I have left. I know I want all my chili bean or all my kidney beans, or at least all the ones that will fit, in a quart jar because we usually use that with chili. And so that's what we're going to start with first. So I've got my kidney beans. We are going to fill them up to within an inch of the rim, the top of the rim, an inch headspace. Now, again, these aren't fully cooked. They've taken on a lot of water, but they're not fully cooked. And then after we get the beans to about the 1 inch mark, we're going to fill it with water the rest of the way. And that is just the liquid that we have in our pan. They aren't going to be pretty, but they will taste good. And it could be that some people just go ahead and do boiling water that's fresh on top of their beans. That's fine. We have already rinsed these beans and soaked them, and we took off any of that gas producing enzyme in there. So the water is just full of nutrients right now. Okay, so looks like I'm going to get close to 2 quarts, and I just have a few. I don't even know if I have 1/4 of a cup of beans left. I have juice, but let's see what I have in here. At the end, I'll just make a mixed bean jar if I have enough to make a jar. Now, if you don't have enough liquid, you can always use water. Just grab you some water. Of course, boiling water would be best, but if you don't have any, just tap water is fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can get any air bubbles out and just kind of move these beans a little bit to see if they've got them in there as good as they're going to go. A lot of times when we're debubbling them and they've already dropped down, they're going to drop down and rearrange. And so that one looks really good. This one I might have to add a few more. I'd rather err on the side of fewer beans and more water. That way, if they do absorb a lot more water and they do get bigger, it's not going to siphon. So I actually think that looks good. I'm not going to add anything. That's an inch. I'll add just a little bit of water to that one. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and clean the rims on these. Well, no, I'm going to go ahead. Yep, I'm going to go ahead and clean the rims. And I've got to get my paper towel and my vinegar. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my vinegar and my paper towel. You know, I always think I have everything set out, but I don't. I always forget something. So we'll see what else I forgot. I probably forgot something else. Okay, so I'm just wiping these rims with some vinegar and water. And I'm going to add some salt, and I am using canning salt. It is preferred because it doesn't have the iodine that causes cloudiness. Of course, these jars aren't going to be that pretty anyway, but it says 1 teaspoon per quart, 1/2 teaspoon per pint, And if you don't want to add salt, you don't have to. It's just for flavor. So there's our salt. Now we can put our lids on. And nothing has been sterilized. Remember, if you're processing more than 10 minutes, you do not have to sterilize your jars or your lids. They are just cleaned with hot soapy water. That one doesn't look good. And remember to do fingertip tight. And these two are ready. Let's grab our next beans. I'm going to set these aside because there's still just about 1/4 of a cup in there, and we'll put that in one mixed bean jar here in a minute. So our next ones that we're doing are the navy beans, and we're going to continue doing quarts. I hope we get 2 quarts out of this. I do have a couple of navy bean jars in the pantry. And I'm sorry if you can hear the lawnmower. Andy will be in places that are far away, and I think he's done around the house, and then he comes back around. So every once in a while we may be hearing that. It takes about 2 hours to mow our yard. So we have several acres to mow. Okay, there's one, and I'll get the liquid in there in just a second. It actually has quite a bit of liquid in there. And this one's going to have plenty of liquid, so if I need extra liquid for any of the beans coming up, this navy bean liquid will be fine because it is more clear. I'd love to know if you can your own beans, and if so, what method do you use? And I'm only going to get a quart or a pint out of this, so let me get a pint jar. So we're just going to switch over to a pint jar. Take off the liquid first. And it looks like this is going to be a perfect quart and pint, which is fine. Sometimes we use these white beans in different salads and stuff. And so if there's just, or even a soup for just Andy and I, if we're just making a small soup, one of these is a good size. I did still have a couple of pints, so the quart will be nice if I'm making white chicken chili. That's what I like to use for my white chicken chili. And get all the air bubbles out. And it looks like we're going to need okay. Oh, I think he's finished. He's putting it in the shed. Take a few of those out. Again, if they still are going to swell any, I would rather have more water in there than beans. Okay, those two are ready. Let's clean the rims. Oh, I need to add the salt. I bet you anything I'm going to forget to add salt in one of these jars. But it's okay because it is just optional. So 1/2 teaspoon for the pint and a full teaspoon for the quart. Now, I have videos of making some soups and things, and I use the beans in some of my soups. Um, but a lot of times I just like to do ingredients and then make my stuff fresh or from canned ingredients. But having those soups is nice, especially with my husband bringing his lunch to work. Those are really easy in the pints for him to take to work, and he really enjoys those. All right, so I've got just about a tablespoon of beans in there, but I do have a little bit of liquid in there, so if I need more liquid, I'll be adding that. Now the beans I have here are my pinto beans, and these over here. And these are the most that I canned. These are the ones I had a lot of. So let me grab my ladle again and give this a stir. And let's start putting these in. Now, I've seen recipes for chili beans. I have never made the chili beans, and I would like to, and that's something I'm going to do sometime. I just needed to get these done today. But we do like to have the store-bought chili beans. We like that flavor, but we don't want to buy if we don't have to. So I always make it, and we have, of course, our seasonings that we make for chili, and it's fine. But I'd like to find a recipe to make some chili beans that taste like the ones you get at the store. And we don't like the real hot ones. We like the mild. And I don't know if you know the ones I'm talking about. It's the ones that have kind of the red chili juice with it. Those are really good. So I'm going to have to see if I can find a good recipe for that and find time to do that. With this summer, it's just getting the things that I have to get put away before they go bad. And so that's what I've been focusing on. But I'm getting close to a point where I don't have anything that's going bad right now that I can wait just a little bit. Like my tomatoes that are in the freezer, I can put those off until whenever, but I would like to have my freezer space. So we've got about 5 large 3-gallon buckets in our freezer that it would be nice to get those out. And I think I'm just going to make sauce or juice with them. That would be easy. I'm pretty good on all my tomato products. Got lots of sauce. I haven't had to make any tomato or spaghetti sauce this year because I have plenty from last year. We had a good crop last year. But I don't want to waste any of my tomatoes either, so whatever I have, I will can up into something usable. And we don't eat all of our canned goods. We share it with our family. And of course, my sons, we let them take home what they want and use that, and they appreciate that too. There's one. Yesterday it was so gloomy and cold that it felt like chilly weather. And today we wake up and it's just as beautiful as can be outside, and beautiful breeze. It's in the 70s. Lawns being mowed. Crazy weather right now. All right, I'm going to get these in the canner and get these going, and then I'm going to start filling the rest of the pints. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got the quarts in the pressure canner, and that's going to have to heat up and then start venting for 10 minutes. And then I will set the quarts for 90 minutes of pressurized canning. And now we're going to fill up the rest of the pints. I did go ahead and stick the 1 pint in the pressure canner with the lid just tilted on there just to keep it warm. But we're going to get the rest of the pints, and then we'll put those in the canner that has the pints. So let's get this done. And I'm just going to zip through this because we're doing the same process that we just did. And then I'll bring you back when we've got them all ready. All right, I've got them all in jars, and this is the only beans I had left, and we'll just put those in the fridge, and I'll use those for something that I cooked this week. Not enough even to put in a half pint, so did a good job of getting everything measured out. Now I did end up putting a couple of kidney beans in my pinto bean jar, so that's the only one that's going to have a mixture, so I was surprised by that. So I got, let's see, 3, 6, 7. I got 7 pints here and then 1 pint in the canner. So that's 8 pints of beans. So I'm putting this in. I'm going to check my canner and see if it's been venting yet. And then I'll start timing it. I will be linking the directions on how to pressure can dried beans and peas. And it is from the National Center of Home and Food Preservation. So if you need that information, just go to the description box and click on that link, and it will go right to that page and give you all the details. So I'm getting this in and starting to can. But I will be back because while this is in, I'm going to be doing some other stuff. So be right back. Yesterday evening, I went out and decided I would harvest a few of the herbs. They were looking really good. We had had a rain and it seemed to refresh everything. So I just gathered some sage and parsley and oregano and basil. And this is this morning. I had just bundled it up, rinsed it off, and then laid it on a towel under the ceiling fan. And now I'm getting ready to hang it in our sunroom so that it can dry. But I've been doing this throughout the summer. I know you haven't seen me doing this. It's been behind the scenes. But as I've noticed the herb pots full, I've just gathered bunches of it, dried it, and then set it aside. Now I have ground up quite a bit of it and put it in herb jars and spice bottles and things, but it has gotten pretty busy lately, so the stuff that I have been drying is now sitting in a big basket on the dining room table that I'm going to have to work up here soon. So as you can see, all I have is an old coat rack, and these are some herbs that I had probably harvested, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I need to get those taken off and these fresh ones put back on. So like I said, I just wrap a rubber band around them, and so when I hang them, I just take a little of that rubber band and just loop it on the hook, and so they're easy to pull off. But it's easy to do. It's just one of those things you just go out, and as you're outside, cut the herbs and then bring them in, bundle them up, and hang them. And once they're dried, you can just set them aside for a while. You don't have to do anything with them. But they're going to be really nice to have on hand for the rest of the year when cooking. So I'm just getting all of these off, and I will put the new ones in their place. So these will probably stay here for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll replace them with some freshly cut ones. And not only are these very useful to have in the kitchen, but these herbs hanging make our house feel very homey, and they smell really good as well. I am bringing in a few dried serrano peppers, and these have been out there for a couple of days, and it looks like they're all very dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let them cool off here on the trays, and then I will put them in a big plastic bag, a Ziploc bag, and just wait. These are not anything I have to get to today or anytime soon. I can store them in a plastic bag, and I can even stick that plastic bag in the freezer. So I'm just setting these aside, letting them cool, and then I'll put them in a Ziploc bag later. So that's one thing I've been working on. Once I took the hot peppers off the trays, I decided to refill them with the jalapenos that we had on a back table, and so I cut those into 4 sections, took out the seeds and the membranes, and laid them out on the trays, and was able to get them started on dehydrating. We usually dehydrate at about 135 degrees, and these are quite thick-walled peppers, and they're big pieces, so these are going to take, I think it ended up being like a day and a half or so, and just to get them really dry, we want to get them dry enough to powder. So those are all set. We also had some bell peppers that were needing to be sliced up that were also on the table, so I just decided instead of dehydrating those, I was just going to freeze them in strips, kind of like what you'd use for fajitas. And so I got lots of bags of those. I'm working on. Then I've got to get my canisters filled up, and you probably see my canisters in my videos, and that's just where I keep my flour and sugars. And then we buy bulk, we buy the big bags, and we just take them and put them in big food safe containers and keep them in our upstairs or our main floor pantry. And that way I just keep a large amount on my counter. We do go through a lot of flour and sugar because we eat every meal at home. We don't go out for dinner or lunch or breakfast. We live in the country, and all of our meals are eaten at home. So we do a lot of cooking. And then, of course, when the boys come home, we do a lot of cooking, and a lot of times I'll send things back with them so that they won't have to cook during the week when they're working. But we do go through a lot of flour and sugar. We also take food down when we go to our family in Springfield and make sure that they have what they need down there. And so what I just am doing now is I am just taking my regular flour and just filling up my canister. I store regular flour, wheat flour, and bread flour, and try to keep at least one of these buckets full at all times. So I've got 2 buckets that I've kind of got for each. Well, not for the whole wheat flour, but for sugar, regular flour, and the bread flour. I try to have 2 buckets, and when one of them runs out, I know I need to get another big bag. So I just keep this filled up with it. And this is nice because I don't have to fill them very often. And we always have it on hand. And when you buy it in bulk, you can get better prices on it, and that helps keep your food budget in line. And I'm just going to wipe this jar down. These big jars I got at Walmart, and they're really reasonable. I don't know if they're like 12, 15. They might have gone up since I purchased mine, but I really like these big ones. Okay. And we've got our flour set. And I always keep a 1-cup measuring cup in that because that's usually what I'm measuring out for the flour. So I'll put this over here and we'll get our sugar. Now we have a lot of sugar in the summertime. We go through it pretty fast with jams and jellies and a lot of preserving with the sugars. And then during the holidays, of course, you're baking. But I also use my sugar to make my own brown sugar and my own powdered sugar. So as long as I just keep regular sugar on hand, I am good. I find that cane sugar does the best powdered sugar. It grinds up a lot nicer than the beet sugar. So if you're making your own powdered sugar, I would suggest cane sugar. And I had just learned how to make my own powdered sugar earlier this year, and so was glad to find that out. It's nice when you don't have to have all sorts of stuff from the grocery store. You can buy certain basics, and then you can use those basics however you need to. And there's a lot of stuff at the grocery store that is so easy to make at home. And it's so much cheaper when you make it at home. And I know when you have a job, it's very hard to do that. So when you're busy with the family and working, it's very hard to do that. When I used to work with the kids at home too, I would use my weekends, and I would have everybody in the family would help. We would all work together to get it because they knew that if we saved the money on food, we had more money to spend on fun things like vacations and things like that. So we try not to overspend on food so that we can have the money to do other things. And it's amazing how quickly you can spend money on food, especially if you eat out or if you just get coffees and things at Starbucks or any coffee shop. It adds up very quickly. You'd be surprised if you added up how much money you were spending on your beverages. And you can make those yourself at more than less than half the price. So that sugar's full. And I'll put this back, and then I'm going to add a little brown sugar. I have a video for making powdered sugar and a video for making brown sugar. If you're interested in making your own, they are quite easy. I just love our homemade brown sugar. And when you make a big old batch of it, it just takes about 10 minutes if you have a mixer. And then you are set for several months. Because this was what I had. I had this and this in a large batch that I made in one mixer bowl. And so sometimes those little sugar granules get in the teeth of our Ziploc. Okay, there we go. Okay, we also have our oats here. And we just keep this on our little shelf with our herbs and things. And we buy the big bags of oats and just keep out this jar to use from, and when it empties out, we just fill it up again. Living on a farm and being out in the country, I like to put a lot of my things in glass, and plastic's okay too. I just prefer the way glass looks, and I just feel like glass is easier to keep clean. But we do have rodents out in the country, and especially this time of year when it starts getting cooler, the field mice like to start coming in. So I find that if we have all of our food in glass jars and plastic containers, we don't have as much problem with mice because they don't have a food source. So if you're having trouble with mice, check and see what they're getting into to eat, because if they don't have a food source, they're not going to stick around. So we just keep a lot of our stuff in glass containers. So the oats is ready to go. And then we also keep our cocoa in a jar for easy access. And I just buy this bulk at our Mennonite store. And there's some different kind of cocos. If I have a different kind, I just keep it in the regular container, like a dark chocolate or a black chocolate. And since they're kind of a specialty cocoa, I just keep them in their containers. But we use this cocoa the most, so I always have it on the shelf, so it's easy to use. And when you cook a lot, you want your ingredients to be within easy access, because if you have to get everything out, it makes you think, I really don't want to cook. But if everything's out and handy, it's really not a big deal to make anything. Okay, so that one's ready. Cocoa's a little bit messy. All right, let's do some cornstarch. And I use quite a bit of cornstarch in my baking. Cornstarch is a great additive for cookies and cakes to keep them moist. So usually I will throw in a tablespoon or so into a batter, cake batter, or a cookie mix, and that just keeps them more moist. Also, it's for puddings and things like that, gravies, thickening soups. I also use flour to thicken some of those things, but if I want a nice clear soup or a nice clear gravy, I will use cornstarch. Okay, and of course I'm making a mess like always. Okay, so we got that. And I just bought this big bulk at our Mennonite store too, a big bulk of cornstarch. Nice to have those containers. Scoop that aside. Let's see, then I like to keep my salt and pepper containers full. I use basically kosher salt all the time when I'm cooking. Every once in a while, if I need something that has a smoother texture, I will use plain table salt. And then of course canning, I use canning salt. And then pepper, and I just keep this on the shelf and refill it as I need. And when I do this and I'm refilling all of my canisters on the counter, I keep track of what I need to buy, because like right now, this looks like my pepper here, is just about gone. So next time I go, I need to pick up pepper. Baking soda. And you do want to make sure your baking soda is fresh. If you're cooking and it doesn't look like your things are rising that well, check your baking soda and your baking powder. They may be needing to be renewed. They do weaken as they are stored. But baking soda is great for a lot of things. It's great for cleaning. It's great for the laundry. We throw it in the laundry all the time to help absorb odors and to help our detergent work better. So there's a lot of uses for baking soda. And baking powder. And as you can probably hear, I don't know if this keeps the noise reduction out or not, but the canners are both going out there. I can hear both of them rocking. And they have just a little bit of time left. Once the time is up on them, they're going to be about 10 minutes apart. Once the time is up, I'm going to turn off the heat and just let them come down to regular pressure. Then after they're down to regular pressure, I usually wait another 10-15 minutes at least. And then I will open up the lids and just tilt them a little bit so some air will get in, and let them set like that for 10 minutes before I take them out and set them on a counter. I found that just really helps with the siphoning. Also, not having the heat and the flame up real high or having it rock really fast is a big help, and not changing and fluctuating temperatures really helps with the siphoning. So trying to do all of those things should help with siphoning. Sometimes you do everything right and you still have siphoning. So hopefully we won't have siphoning. We'll see. Okay, so I've got all of my dry ingredients, things that I needed to refilled. Now what I need to do, I just took the beans out of the canner, and I tell you what, they look absolutely great. Remember how cloudy and dirty the water looked? And look at it now, it looks beautiful. It looks like all of them have sealed, or they're going to seal. There was just a little siphoning. Some of the water in the canner the water in the canner was just a little bit tinged, especially in the quart, because I believe next time I do the kidney beans, I will probably add just a few less kidney beans and a little more water. I think they probably swelled up quite a bit, and that's what caused the siphoning on them. That's probably the ones that were siphoning. But everything else looks just beautiful. Very, very happy. The texture looks like it's going to be good because the beans all look like they are in full shape. They don't look like they've fallen apart. So if these taste as good as they look, this is the way I will continue to can my beans. Now what I need to do, let me get these tubs put down here. I need to get some mixes made up. And the first mix that I want to do is chocolate cake mix. Remember the other day for the peach cobbler, I had made the mix for a white or yellow cake mix, and I just have it in a big jar. I'll bring it out here in a second. Well, I want to do a chocolate cake like that too. All right, so here is what I made in the one video with the peach cobbler, and it's just the white cake mix or yellow cake mix. If you want to make a white cake mix, you can double the eggs and just use the egg whites, and that would make a white cake mix. If you use the eggs, that they call for, and just use the whole eggs, it's a yellow cake. It's just the egg yolks make it either yellow or white. So I've got that one. And I came across these 3 big jars, and I think they were like $4 each at just like a little secondhand store. And at the time, I didn't know what I would use them for, but I knew that I would definitely have a use for. So I used the one right here, and this has got a lid on it. It's just that I put a little bonnet on it to keep it cute, and on my pantry shelf. And so I am going to use another one of these to do my chocolate cake mix. Now, I have been keeping bags of chocolate bars and things that I cook with in here, but then I was at a secondhand store yesterday, or no, the day before yesterday, and I found this big glass crock like my sugar and flour ones, but it didn't have the lid. And I actually have one that has a chip on it, but the lid's in perfectly good condition. But I'm just using that for change, putting coins in it, and so it doesn't have to be in good shape. But I thought I could buy this one, and I could make a little jar bonnet on it and then store something inside here. So I thought, well, that would be perfect for these things. That way I can get these jars freed up. So I have my baking chocolates and my little chocolate wafers, melting chocolate wafers. I have different kinds of add-ins to cookies and mini chips, just different things that I use when baking, a lot of melting chocolates. And I'm going to put all of those in there, and that way I have these 2 jars for mixes. And then I made, let me grab it over here. I made a little jar bonnet, and one side it has the black and white tulle, and the other side it has, whoops, the other side it has the black and cream ticking. So it doesn't matter which one, I could use either side, but I thought this way I can store those. They all have packaging already. It's just this way it keeps them all together and keeps rodents out as well. So that'll go in my pantry like that, and I have plenty of room in there to keep those things. So now I have my jars right here that I can use. So I'm going to rinse those out and get those cleaned up. I'm going to get the ingredients for the chocolate cake mix out, and I'll bring you back and I'll show you how to make a chocolate cake mix. Okay, friends, as I'm editing this video, I am finding that the video is going to be extremely long if we keep it all in one video. So I'm going to be dividing this video up into 2. On this day, we got lots done. Here are the beans that came out of the canner, and very happy with the way they came out. We also cleaned out and organized and refilled our pantry items. We made this chocolate cake mix that you'll be seeing in the next video. I was able to go ahead and get the serrano peppers off the dehydrator, the ones that came out of the dehydrator today, and into a plastic bag. And then I was able to bag up all of our bell peppers and get them frozen and in the freezer. Here they are here. We've got, at this point, jalapenos on the dehydrator, so they're going to be going for, like I said, it was like a day and a half or so. So we've got all of this stuff finished, but I'm going to continue in a second video. So here is a sneak peek of what we made with our chocolate cake mix. It is one of our favorite desserts. It is a triple chocolate pound cake, and you will see how we make this and how we make the chocolate cake mix as well. So I hope you are able to stick around and watch the next video. I really appreciate you watching these videos. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. That would help me out a lot. Also, don't forget to like and share. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I love to hear from you. Also, as always, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will talk to you soon.